I'd like to welcome everybody to Season 3 of Check Your Shelf. We've got the Orwellian double feature. We're going to start it off with Animal Farm and then follow it up with 1984, a back-to-back set of certified heaters. In this season, we're going to discuss how absolute power can completely and totally destroy a man. We're going to discuss how the bourgeois class always wants to keep down the working class. And we're going to discuss why the government, the state, the man does not care about you. This book was banned in the United States for being pro-communism. This book was banned in the United Arab Emirates in 2012 for being un-Islamic. Printers in the UK were discouraged from printing it in order to not emblazon the USSR. But it's not banned here. Not on Check Your Shelf. Because that's what we do. We read what they don't want us to read. And it's better that way. So I'm gonna have to ask you to go check your shelf. What's up, what's up? What's really good? Hope y'all had a good weekend. Hope y'all enjoyed that time and a half episode I had put out a little bit late. You know, if I call out, I'm gonna come to work extra hard when I do show up, you know, so. But we're back again. This is episode 19, episode 3 of Animal Farm, and man, last episode got pretty heated there at the end, didn't it? But running through the whole episode, we kind of figured we experienced Snowball and Napoleon, the two pigs of the farm, the head pigs. They were starting to kind of divide everybody. Snowball seemed to be a little bit more pragmatic and optimistic for the future of Animal Farm, and Napoleon was much more like paws to the ground and not disruptive, but operating a little bit more in the shadows, it would seem. We also witnessed Snowball creating plans for a windmill, and that windmill was supposed to reduce the amount of work that these animals had to do on the farm to just 3 days a week. I mean, right now they're working every day except Sunday, so not only would it drop how much they had to work down to 3 days a week, but it would probably triple their production. We got to experience Mr. Jones and the farmers all coming back, the neighboring farmers. They came back to the Mr. Jones's farm, the animal farm, with weapons, and they were going to steal the farm back from the animals. The animals wasn't having it though, and they were able to defend it properly. And after that, one of the fucking farmers, I think it was actually Mr. Jones, he had a gun and he dropped it, and so now they got a gun placed at the flagstaff at the center of the farm. And then I think Napoleon came up with a new maxim. I can't remember who it was exactly, but he came up with a new maxim that seems to be more important to some of the animals, which would be 4 legs good, 2 legs bad. And you could hear the sheep kind of just bleating it over and over and over again. Bleating with a T, not bleeding. That sounded weird with my hip-hop diction and southern fucking accent, but and we had a little bit of pig-on-pig violence. It seems Napoleon had undermined Snowball and used something that he had said or done. I can't exactly remember what it was that actually cast him aside, but at the very end we had Napoleon come in and announce that he was actually on Team Windmill, despite seeming to oppose the windmill. You know, he was anti-windmill. It was getting to the point where Napoleon and Snowball were just disagreeing to disagree. So I'm gonna run back the last paragraph or two just so we have a nice little flow into chapter 6. If you're not reading along with us, if you don't have the book and you'd like to, you can hop onto YouTube and watch the episodes there where we've got the PDF brought up on screen. You can also hop in the Discord, which is at the bottom right of the YouTube video. There's really no point in me rambling out a fucking link with a bunch of letters and numbers at the end, because ain't nobody gonna type that in. But if you want to go to Linktr.ee, Linktr.ee/Ascend.Create, that'll give you everything we got. So let's hop into this biatch right before chapter 6. The windmill was in fact Napoleon's own creation. Why then, asked somebody, had he spoken so strongly against it? And here Squealer looked very sly. That, he said, was Comrade Napoleon's cunning. He had seemed to oppose the windmill simply as a maneuver to get rid of Snowball. who was a dangerous character and a bad influence. So this is the start of the, I don't know if it's necessarily propaganda, but we're starting to have a little bit of mental warfare going on here, trying to trick some of the animals that Snowball's the bad guy, so Napoleon can start to seize this power. And this Squealer said this was tactics. He repeated a number of times, "Tactics, comrades, tactics," skipping around and whisking his tail with a merry laugh. The animals were not certain what the word meant, but Squealer spoke so persuasively, and the 3 dogs that happened to be with him growled so threateningly that they accepted his explanation without any further question. Yeah, cute little way to say, you know, if you've got the police force and the militia on your side, it's kind of hard for a regular citizen to have the bravery to do something about it, and let us kind of get complacent, right? Chapter 6. All that year, the year of the windmill, I'm guessing, all that year the animals worked like slaves, but they were happy in their work. They grudged no effort or sacrifice, well aware that everything they did was for the benefit of themselves and those of their kind who would come after them, and not for a pack of idle, thieving human beings. Throughout the spring and summer, they worked a 60-hour week, and in August, Napoleon announced that there would be work on Sunday afternoons as well. Oh, that's right, I remember setting that up in the last episode too. Napoleon said that there's going to be a lot of changes to the original plans, and it's probably going to take closer to 3 years than 1 year. And we're going to have to work Sundays now. So Napoleon's leadership was already a little bit more backbreaking and laborious. So I'm wondering if we're gonna see a quick uprising here in this. I mean, the pacing of this book is crazy. So they worked Sunday afternoons as well. This work was strictly voluntary, but any animal who absented himself from it would have his rations reduced by half. So yeah, not really fucking voluntary then, is it, huh? Even so, it was found necessary to leave certain tasks undone. God damn. This is the worst lit of all time. I'm not taking a drink of that anymore in this podcast. Even so, it was found necessary to leave certain tasks undone. The harvest was a little less successful than in the previous year, and the 2 fields, which should have been sown with roots in the early summer, were not sown because the plowing had not been completed early enough. It was possible to foresee that the coming winter would be a hard one. The windmill presented unexpected difficulties. There was a good quarry of limestone on the field, and plenty of sand and cement had been found in one of the outhouses, so that all the materials for the building were at hand. But the problem the animals could not at first solve was how to break up the stone into pieces of suitable size. There seemed no way of doing this except with picks and crowbars, which no animal could use, because no animal could stand on its hind legs. 4 legs good, 2 legs bad, remember? That's not the reason, like they're physically not able because it's cows and pigs and shit, but only after weeks of vain effort did the right idea occur to somebody, namely, to use the force of gravity. Huge boulders, far too big to be used as they were lying all over the bed of the quarry. The animals lashed ropes around these, and then altogether cows, horses, sheep, any animal that could lay hold of the rope, even the pigs sometimes, joined in at critical moments. See, the pigs are already, see, did they not used to work? I don't remember them laying out of work. I always thought the pigs, well, I guess they were always the readers, writers, planners, and leaders, so the pigs are just upper management at fucking Best Buy. Oh yeah, sometimes they help sell stuff or whatever, you know. Oh damn, the owner's coming to fucking run the salad bar? Nice. You don't ever see that? Oh, he's gonna expo? Nice. So, anyway. Even the pigs sometimes joined in at critical moments. They dragged them with desperate slowness up the slope to the top of the quarry, where they were toppled over the edge and shattered to pieces down below. Transporting the stone when it was once broken was comparatively simple. The horses carried it off in cartloads. The sheep dragged single blocks. Even Muriel and Benjamin yoked themselves into an old governess cart and did their share. Muriel and Benjamin, those are the two donkeys, I think, right? Old Benjamin. By late summer, a sufficient store of stone had accumulated, and then the building began under the superintendence of the pigs. But it was a slow, laborious process. Frequently, it took a whole day of exhausting effort to drag a single boulder to the top of the quarry, and sometimes when it was pushed over the edge, it failed to break. Nothing could have been achieved without Boxer, whose strength seemed equal to that of all the rest of the animals put together. When the boulder began to slip, and the animals cried out in despair at finding themselves dragged down the hill, it was always Boxer who strained himself against the rope and brought the boulder to a stop. To see him toiling up the slope inch by inch, his breath coming fast, the tips of his hooves clawing at the ground, and his great sides matted with sweat, filled everyone with admiration. Clover warned him sometimes to be careful, not to overstrain himself. But Boxer would never listen to her. His two slogans, "I will work harder," and "Napoleon is always right," seemed to him a sufficient answer to all problems. So Boxer's got a real, not bootlicker stance, but like bootlicking in the sense of capitalism. Like he's on. I don't even know if we know enough about these people to say Napoleon is conservative, representing conservatives or not. But the fact that he's doing all that shady shit, trying to undermine Snowball and all that, Boxer is one of those Gen X types. Well, why don't you just, go in there and ask if they're hiring and tell them you'll work hard and you should be able to get a job anywhere you want. Types. Just work harder, work your way up. Listen to your boss. He knows best. That's why he's making all that money. Just work harder. Poor Boxer. I don't know why I gave him such a little bitch-ass accent right there. His accent's cool earlier. Anyway. He had made arrangements with the cockerel to call him 3/4 of an hour earlier in the mornings instead of half an hour. And ooh, that wasn't bad enough to be a ribbity. Don't even get me started. And in his spare moments, of which there were not many nowadays, he would go alone to the quarry, collect a load of broken stone, and drag it down to the site of the windmill unassisted. The animals were not badly off throughout that summer, in spite of the hardness of their work. If they had no more food than they had 3 heads in one sentence, that's a feat. If they had no more food than they had in Jones's day, at least they did not have less. The advantage of only having to feed themselves and not having to support 5 extravagant human beings as well was so great that it would have taken a lot of failures to outweigh it. And in many ways, the animal method of doing things was more efficient and saved labor. Such jobs as weeding, for instance, could be done with a thoroughness impossible to human beings. And again, since no animal now stole, it was unnecessary to fence off pasture from arable land, which saved a lot of labor on the upkeep of hedges and gates. Nevertheless, as the summer wore on, various unforeseen shortages began to make themselves felt. There was a need of paraffin oil, nails, string, dog biscuits, and iron for the horses' shoes, none of which could be produced on the farm. Ah, the plot thickens. Later, there would also be need for seeds and artificial manures, besides various tools, and finally the machinery for the windmill. How these were to be procured, no one was able to imagine. One Sunday morning, when the animals assembled to receive their orders, Napoleon announced that he had decided upon a new policy. From now onwards, Animal Farm would engage in trade with the neighboring farms. Not, of course, for any commercial purpose, but simply in order to obtain certain materials which were urgently necessary. The needs of the windmill must override everything else, he said. He was therefore making arrangements to sell a stack of hay and part of the current year's wheat crop later on. If more money were needed, it would have to be made up by the sale of eggs, for which there was always a market in Willingdon. The hens, said Napoleon, should welcome this sacrifice as their own special contribution towards the building of the windmill. That's a neat way to, you know, trick somebody out of their God-given abilities, right? Isn't that what they were so mad at the humans for doing? Not only that, brainwashing him, being like, this is your destiny, this is your special contribution, you should feel good to do this. But this is, I mean, this is some Mr. Jones shit right here. It's crazy. Who would have thought? Who would have saw it coming? Once again, the animals were conscious of a vague uneasiness. Never to have any dealings with human beings, never to engage in trade, never to make use of money. Had not these been among the earliest resolutions passed at that first triumphant meeting after Jones was expelled? All the animals remembered passing such resolutions, or at least they thought that they remembered it. Ooh, interesting. That's some shit that, like, I feel like that's some shit people who are in, like, abusive relationships say. I thought I remembered that, because they get gaslit so much by the people they look up to and the people that are supposed to lead them, right? Interesting. The four young pigs who had protested when Napoleon abolished the meetings raised their voices timidly, but they were promptly silenced by a tremendous growling from the dogs. And then, as usual, the sheep broke into 4 legs good, 2 legs bad. 4 legs good, 2 legs bad. I don't know if it's worth it saying it every time, but that's how they be bleating it in my brain. And the momentary awkwardness was smoothed over. Finally, Napoleon raised his trotter for silence and announced that he had already made all the arrangements. There would be no need for any of the animals to come in contact with human beings, which would clearly be most undesirable. He intended to take the whole burden upon his own shoulders. A Mr. Whyner, a solicitor living in Willingdon, had agreed to act as an intermediary between Animal Farm and the outside world. A solicitor, doesn't that mean hooker? I mean, I guess you solicit a bunch of shit, but act as an intermediary and would visit the farm every Monday morning to receive his instruction. Napoleon ended his speech with his usual cry of "Long live Animal Farm," and after singing "The Beasts of England," all the animals were dismissed. Afterwards, Squealer made a round of the farm and set the animals' mind at rest. He assured them that the resolution against engaging in trade and using money had never been passed or even suggested. It was pure imagination, probably traceable in the beginning to lies circulated by Snowball. A few animals still felt faintly doubtful, but Squealer asked them shrewdly, "Are you certain that this is not something that you have dreamed, comrades?" Oh, I have to give him his stupid voice. "Are you certain that this is not something that you have dreamed, comrades? Have you any record of such a resolution? Is it written down anywhere?" And since it was certainly true that nothing of the kind existed in writing, the animals were satisfied that they had been mistaken. Tisk, tisk, tisk. You hate to see it. Every Monday, Mr. Whyner visited the farm as he had been arranged. He was a sly-looking little man with side whiskers, a solicitor in a very small way of business, but sharp enough to have realized earlier than anyone else that Animal Farm would need a broker, and that the commissions would be worth having. The animals watched his coming and going with a kind of dread and avoided him as much as possible. Nevertheless, the sight of Napoleon on all fours delivering orders to Whyner, who stood on two legs, roused their pride and partly reconciled them to the new arrangement. Their relations with the human race were now not quite the same as they had been before. The human beings did not hate Animal Farm any less now that it was prospering. Indeed, they hated it more than ever. Every human being held it as an article of faith that the farm would go bankrupt sooner or later, and above all, that the windmill would be a failure. They would meet in public houses and prove to one another by means of diagrams that the windmill was bound to fall down, or that if it did stand up that it would never work. And yet, against their will, they had developed a certain respect for the efficiency with which the animals were managing their own affairs. One symptom of this was that they had begun to call Animal Farm by its proper name and ceased to pretend that it was called the Manor Farm. They had also dropped their championship of Jones, who had given up hope of getting his farm back and gone to live in another part of the county. Don't you ever message me about, no, you stop it, I am recording a podcast. How do I mute? I'm about to just close it. Don't need to have Facebook up I have it open up in a weird window anyway. Ah, man. Talk about a buzzkill, but really it just got my anxiety jumping a little bit. Why'd my heart race like that? That was weird. They had also dropped their championship of Jones, who had given up hope of getting his farm back and gone to live in another part of the county. Except through Whyner, there was as yet no contact between Animal Farm and the outside world. But there were constant rumors that Napoleon was about to enter into a definite business agreement with either Mr. Pilkington of Foxwood or with Mr. Frederick of Pintsfield. Interesting that they do a Mr. P of F and a Mr. F of P. I don't know why that's interesting to me, but it is. But never it was noticed with both simultaneously. So Napoleon looks like he might be trying to play both of them or keep it away from these two for whatever reason. And I think it was kind of cool to note that except through Whyner, there is no contact between Animal Farm and the outside world. We kind of got to keep an eye on Whyner too to see what he's going to be, if he's going to be taking the words of the animals out of context and diluting them or transforming them into something they don't necessarily stand for. It was about this time that the pigs suddenly moved into the farmhouse and took up their residence there. Again, the animals seemed to remember that a resolution against this had been passed in the early days. And again, Squealer was able to convince them that this was not the case. It was absolutely necessary, he said, that the pigs, who were the brains of the farm, should have a quiet place to work in. And it was also more suited to the dignity of the leader, for of late he had taken to speaking of Napoleon under the title of leader. So I can't stand Squealer. I almost don't like him more than I don't like Napoleon. It was also more suited to the dignity of the leader to live in a house more than a mere sty. Nevertheless, some of the animals were disturbed when they heard that the pigs not only took their meals in the kitchen and used the drawing room as a recreation room, but also slept in the beds. Man, that might have been one of the 7 commandments of animalism. I can't remember. Boxer passed it off as usual with Napoleon is always right. Napoleon is always right. I don't remember these voices, man. Don't hold me to it. You know these shit's mad inconsistent. I got my characters, not these characters, okay? Okay? Okay. Sorry. Got a little crazy. But Clover, who thought she remembered a definite ruling against beds, went to the end of the barn and tried to puzzle out the 7 commandments which were inscribed there. Finding herself unable to read more than individual letters, she fetched Muriel. Muriel, read me the 4th commandment, Does it not say something about never sleeping in a bed? With some difficulty, Muriel spelt it out. It says, no animal shall sleep in a bed with sheets, she announced finally. Curiously enough, Clover had not remembered that the fourth commandment mentioned sheets, but as it was there on the wall, it must have done so. And Squealer, who happened to be passing at this moment, attended by 2 or 3 dogs, was able to put the whole matter in its proper perspective. So now, this is interesting too, because we gotta wonder whether or not Muriel can't read this well and is misreading it and is filling this in on her own, or if somebody else has come along with chisels and added with sheets, because if the old animalism commandment was no animal shall sleep in a bed, which I mentioned before we got here, I'm pretty sure it was, then all somebody would have to do is come by and just tack on with sheets at the end, right? So we have 2 possible ways it could go. Let's see what Squealer's got to say about it. You have heard then, comrades, that we pigs now sleep in the beds of about died. That we pigs now sleep in the beds of the farmhouse. And why not? You did not suppose surely that there was ever a ruling against beds. A bed merely means a place to sleep in. A pile of straw in a stall is still a bed, properly regarded. The rule was against sheets, which are a human invention. We have removed the sheets from the farmhouse beds and sleep between the blankets. And very comfortable beds they are too, but not more comfortable than we need. I can tell you, comrades, with all the brain work we have to do nowadays, you would not rob us of our repose, would you, comrades? You would not have us too tired to carry out our duties. Surely none of you wishes to see Jones back. This fucking guy, man. This and very comfortable beds they are too, but not more comfortable than we need. Oh Jesus, this guy fucking rubs me the wrong way. The animals reassured him on this point immediately, and no more was said about the pigs sleeping in the farmhouse beds. And when, some days afterwards, it was announced that from now on the pigs would get up an hour later in the mornings than the other animals, no complaint was made about that either. So you got everybody working 60-hour weeks, so you got the pigs sleeping in beds and waking up an hour later than everybody, and we got Boxer waking up 45 minutes earlier than everyone getting to work earlier. By the autumn, the animals were tired but happy. They had had a hard year, and after the sale of part of the hay and corn, the stores of food for the winter were none too plentiful, but the windmill compensated for everything. It was almost half built now. After the harvest, there was a stretch of a clear, dry... I thought I was going to say winter. There was a stretch of clear, dry weather, and the animals toiled harder than ever, thinking it well worthwhile to plod to and fro all day with blocks of stone, if by doing it they could raise the walls another foot. Boxer would even come out at nights and work for an hour or two on his own by the light of the harvest moon. In their spare moments, the animals would walk round and round the half-finished mill, admiring the strength and perpendicularity of its walls and marveling that they should ever have been able to build anything so imposing. Only old Benjamin refused to grow enthusiastic about the windmill, though, as usual. He would utter nothing beyond the cryptic remark that donkeys live a long time. November came, with raging southwest winds. The building had to stop because it was now too wet to mix the cement. Finally, there came a night when the gale was so violent that the farm buildings rocked on their foundations, and several tiles were blown off the roof of the barn. The hens woke up squawking with terror because they had all dreamed simultaneously of hearing a gun go off in the distance. Ooh, I wonder if somebody really shot the gun off though. I think it was Snowball. What do you think? I'm just kidding. In the morning, The animals came out of their stalls to find that the flagstaff had been blown down and an elm tree at the foot of the orchard had been plucked up like a radish. They had just noticed this when a cry of despair broke from every animal's throat. A terrible sight had met their eyes. The windmill was in ruins. Man, it wasn't a gunshot, but goddamn, if it wasn't a gunshot to the plot, let's go! Hey, hey, hey! Who did that shit? Hey, yo, who broke this shit? With one accord, they dashed down to the spot. Napoleon, who seldom moved out of a walk, raced ahead of them all. Yes, there it lay, the fruit of all their struggles, leveled to its foundations. The stones they had broken and carried so laboriously scattered all around. Unable at first to speak, they stood gazing mournfully at the litter of fallen stone. Napoleon paced to and fro in silence, occasionally snuffing at the ground. His tail had grown rigid and twitched sharply from side to side, a sign in him of intense mental activity. Suddenly he halted, as though his mind were made up. I'm wondering now, I'm thinking, what do you guys think? False flag? Napoleon did it to frame Snowball? What do you think? Comrades, he said quietly, do you know who is responsible for this? Do you know the enemy who has come in the night and overthrown our windmill? Snowball! He suddenly roared in a voice of thunder. Snowball has done this thing, in sheer malignity, thinking back to our plans, thinking to set back our plans and avenge himself for his ignominious expulsion. This traitor has crept here under cover of night and destroyed our work of nearly a year. Comrades, here and now, I pronounce the death sentence upon Snowball. Animal hero second class and a half a bushel of apples to any animal who brings him to justice, a full bushel to anyone who captures him alive. So now they're offering up Animal Hero Second Class, which was like that special ranking that they made where you get like a medal and shit. And they're now offering up rations as rewards. So what we're seeing, what they might be setting up for the, you know, the metaphor here is that it's not necessarily that communism, socialism, or, you know, any sort of mutual aid, whether it's anarchism, whatever. Not inherently a bad idea in and of itself, but it is a little bit easier to exploit people and take advantage of them and maybe seize the power a little bit easier. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but that's the takeaway I've got right now. The animals were shocked beyond measure to learn that even Snowball could be guilty of such an action. There was a cry of indignation, and everyone began thinking out ways of catching Snowball if he should ever come back. Almost immediately, the footprints of a pig were discovered in the grass at a little distance from the knoll. They could only be traced for a few yards, but appeared to lead to a hole in the hedge. Napoleon snuffed deeply at them and pronounced them to be Snowballs. He gave it as his opinion that Snowball had probably come from the direction of Foxwood Farm. No more delays, comrades, cried Napoleon when the footprints had been examined. There is work to be done. This very morning, we begin rebuilding the windmill, and we will build all through the winter, rain or shine. We will teach this miserable traitor that he cannot undo our work so easily. Remember, comrades, there must be no alteration. There must be no alteration in our plans. They shall be carried out to the day. Forward, comrades! Long live the windmill! Long live Animal Farm! Damn, y'all really put a whole blank page in there. So, alright, couple things. Seems mad sus that there's only a couple yards worth of footprints, and that Napoleon is the only one investigating them. He'd just be like sniffing them, and he's like, yep, that's Snowball's. I know it because I'm a pig. I understand it all. Sus, bro. Chapter 7. It was a bitter winter. The stormy weather was followed by sleet and snow, and then by a hard frost which did not break until well into February. The animals carried on as best as they could with the rebuilding of the windmill, well knowing that the outside world was watching them, and that the envious human beings would rejoice and triumph if the mill were not finished on time. Out of spite, the human beings pretended not to believe that it was Snowball who had destroyed the windmill. They said it had to have fallen down because the walls were too thin. The animals knew this was not the case. Still, it had been decided to build the walls 3 feet thick this time instead of 18 inches as before. So they're going from a foot and a quarter? No, a foot and a half. Okay, I'm dumb. Foot and a half, they're doubling it. Doubling the thickness, which means it's gonna take that much longer or it's gonna be mad short, right? Not good. Oh yeah, there you go, which meant collecting larger quantities of stone. For a long time, the quarry was full of snowdrifts and nothing could be done. Some progress was made in the dry, frosty weather that followed, but it was cruel work. Cruel work. Am I hitting that R hard enough? Cruel work. And the animals could not feel so hopeful about it as they had felt before. They were always cold and usually hungry as well. Only Boxer and Clover never lost heart. Squealer made excellent speeches on the joy of service and the dignity of labor, but the other animals found more inspiration in Boxer's strength and his never-failing cry of, "I will work harder." In January, food fell short. The corn ration was drastically reduced, and it was announced that an extra potato ration would be issued to make up for it. Then it was discovered that the greater part of the potato crop had been frosted in the clamps, which had not been covered thickly enough. The potatoes had become soft and discolored, and only a few were edible. For days at a time, the animals had nothing to eat but chaff and mangles. I don't know what either one of those are. Dr. Goog? Yes, hello, what can I do for you, sir? Can you Google chaff and mangles? Oh, I could sure try, sir. I would love to maybe give that a shot for you. Oh, well, thank you, sir. I'm trying to figure out how to talk and bring this shit up at the same time. Chaff and mangles is chopped hay and straw used as fodder. It's funny because the first result is Animal Farm Chapter 7 and 8 vocabulary words. Don't look at my emails. Oh no, they're still there. Yeah. Interesting that Animal Farm is the only, well, not the only place, but funny that it's the most common place that this is used. They had nothing to eat but chaff and mangles. Starvation seemed to stare them in the face. It was vitally necessary to conceal this fact from the outside world. Emboldened by the collapse of the windmill, the human beings were inventing fresh lies about Animal Farm. Once again, it was being put about that all of the animals were dying of famine and disease, and that they were continually fighting amongst themselves and had resorted to cannibalism and infanticide. So this is like another critical critique. This is another critique of communism, right? Is that, oh, look how they're doing over there in that communist country. They have to fight for bread and all that stuff, right? So just connecting the parallels a little bit. Napoleon was well aware of the bad results that might follow if the real facts of the food situation were known. And he decided to make use of Mr. Whymper to to spread a contrary impression. Hitherto, the animals had little or no contact with Whyner on his weekly visits. Now, however, a few selected animals, mostly sheep, were instructed to remark casually in his hearing that rations had been increased. In addition, Napoleon ordered the almost empty bins in the store shed to be filled nearly to the brim with sand, which was then covered up with what remained of the grain and meal. On some suitable pretext, Whyner was led through the store shed and allowed to catch a glimpse of the bins. He was deceived and continued to report to the outside world that there was no food shortage on Animal Farm. Nevertheless, towards the end of January, it became obvious that it would be necessary to procure some more grain from somewhere. In these days, Napoleon rarely appeared in public, but spent all his time in the farmhouse, which was guarded at each door by fierce-looking dogs. When he did emerge, it was in a ceremonial manner, with an escort of 6 dogs who closely surrounded him and growled if anyone came too near. Frequently, he did not even appear on Sunday mornings, but issued his orders through one of his other pigs, usually Squealer. One Sunday morning, Squealer announced that the hens, who had just come in to lay again, must surrender their eggs. Napoleon had accepted, through Whyner, a contract for 400 eggs a week. The price of these would pay for enough grain and meal to keep the farm going till summer, and conditions were easier. Until summer came on and conditions were easier. When the hens heard this, they raised a terrible outcry. They had been warned earlier that this sacrifice might be necessary, but had not believed that it would really happen. They were just getting their clutches ready for the spring sitting, and they protested that to take the eggs away now was murder. For the first time since the expulsion of Jones, there was something resembling a rebellion. Led by 3 young black Minorca pullets. What the fuck? What the hell are we talking about? Doctor! Hey, shut up. Just tell me what I need to know and get the hell out of here. Don't read my emails, don't read my emails, don't read my emails. Oh, it's just a type of chicken. What the fuck's a pullet? Oh, they're just chickens, but what the fuck is a pullet? That doesn't make any sense. I've heard of a pallet. Do you mean a pallet? Pull it, pop it, twist it, pull it. All right, I'm done. The hens made a determined effort to thwart Napoleon's wishes. Their method was to fly up to the rafters and there lay their eggs, which smashed to pieces on the floor. Let's go, man. Conscientious objection, peaceful protest. Let's run it. Even though they complained it would be murder, but so now they're murdering their own shit. But whatever. Dude, my face is itching and tickling, and I sneezed a lot earlier. My whole life is just falling apart, basically, is what I'm trying to say. Which smashed to pieces on the floor. Napoleon acted swiftly and ruthlessly. He ordered the hens' rations to be stopped and decreed that any animal giving so much as a grain of corn to a hen should be punished by death. The dogs saw to it that these orders were carried out. For 5 days the hens held out. Then they capitulated and went back to their nesting boxes. 9 hens had died in the meantime. Their bodies were buried in the orchard, and it was given out that they had died of coccidiosis. Whyner heard nothing of this affair, and the eggs were duly delivered. A grocer's van driving up to the farm once a week to take them away. All this while, no more had been seen of Snowball. He was either rumored to be hiding on one of the neighboring farms, either Foxwood or Pinchfield. Napoleon was by this time on slightly better terms with the other farmers than before. It happened that there was in the yard a pile of timber, which had been stacked there 10 years earlier when a beach spinney was cleared. It was well seasoned, and Mr. Whymper had advised Napoleon to sell it. Both Mr. Pilkington and Mr. Frederick were anxious to buy it. Napoleon was hesitating between the two, unable to make up his mind. It was noticed that whenever he seemed on the point of coming to an agreement with Frederick, Snowball was declared to be hiding at Foxwood, while when he inclined toward Pilkington, Snowball was said to be at Pinchfield. See why this is confusing, man? So many fucking F's and P's and P's. Man, why couldn't it have been Frederick over there at Farm Slippy and Pilkington over there at fucking Farm Reject? Jesus, something, I don't know. Suddenly, early in the spring, an alarming thing was discovered. Snowball was secretly frequenting the farm by night. Snowball was secretly Fucking, that sentence is hard to say fast. Snowball was secretly frequenting the farm by night. Secretly frequenting the farm by night. That sentence got soul, man. The animals were so disturbed that they could hardly sleep in their stalls. Every night, it was said, he came creeping in under the cover of darkness and performed all kinds of mischief. He stole the corn, he upset the milk pails, he broke the eggs, he trampled the seed beds, he gnawed the bark off the fruit trees. Whenever anything went wrong, it became usual to attribute it to Snowball. If a window was broken or a drain was blocked up, someone was certain to say that Snowball had come in the night and done it. And when the key of the store shed was lost, the whole farm was convinced Snowball had thrown it down the well. Curiously enough, they went on believing this, even after the mislaid key was found under a sack of meal. The cows declared unanimously that Snowball crept into their stalls and milked them in their sleep. The rats, which had been troublesome that winter, were also said to be in league with Snowball. Napoleon decreed that there should be a full investigation into Snowball's activities. With his dogs in attendance, he set out and made a careful tour of inspection of the farm buildings, the other animals following at a respectful distance. At every few steps, Napoleon stopped and snuffed the ground for traces of Snowball's footsteps, which he said he could detect by the smell. He snuffed in every corner in the barn, in the cow shed, in the hen houses, the vegetable garden, and found traces of Snowball almost everywhere. He would put his snout to the ground, give several deep sniffs, and exclaim in a terrible voice, "Snowball! He has been here! I can smell him distinctly!" And the word Snowball, at the word Snowball, all the dogs let out blood-curdling growls and showed their side teeth. The animals were thoroughly frightened. It seemed to them as though Snowball were some kind of invisible influence, pervading the air about them and menacing them with all kinds of dangers. In the evening, Squealer called them together and with an alarmed expression on his face, told them that he had some serious news to report. I don't like this one bit. This is almost getting a little too real, right? Like this is happening today still. Because I'm not 100% convinced that Snowball is sneaking in. I'm convinced that Napoleon is doing all this, and he's just you got to have a bad guy. If you can unite the farm under a common enemy, it makes people a lot easy to be directed, if you will. "Comrades!" cried Squealer, making little nervous skips. "A most terrible thing has been discovered. Snowball has sold himself to Frederick of Pinchfield Farm, who is even now plotting to attack us and take our farm away from us. Snowball is to act as his guide when the attack begins. But there's worse than that. We had thought that Snowball's rebellion was caused simply by his vanity and ambition. But we were wrong, comrades. Do you know what the real reason was? Snowball was in league with Jones from the very start. He was Jones's secret agent the whole time. It has all been discovered by documents which he left behind him, and we fucking documents. Here we go, man. It was proved by documents which he left behind him and which we have only just discovered. To my mind, this explains a great deal, comrades. Did we not see for ourselves how he attempted, fortunately without success, that one was hard to say with that fucking voice, to get us defeated and destroyed in the Battle of the Cowshed? Did we not see for ourselves how did he attempt to get us defeated and destroyed in the Battle of Cowshed? Is he just making that up too? So y'all so worried about fake news, but you also like mad authoritative and like standing up for these like the man type shit, bro. Like it's weird, and it's really it's reflected really well here. There's something else I think I wanted to talk about. Where is that? Oh yeah, the documents. By the way, guys, we have the documents and we just found them. It's pretty convenient, you know, the thing we needed to absolve us of all responsibility. Oh, it's right here. Yeah, fucking, we found it. Thank God we found this. Otherwise, could you imagine? The animals were stupefied. This was a wickedness far outdoing Snowball's destruction of the windmill. What? What is? Oh, that Snowball sold himself to Pinchfield, I guess? The animals were stupefied. This was a wickedness far outdoing Snowball's destruction of the windmill, but it was some minutes before they could fully take it in. They all remembered, or thought they remembered, how they had seen Snowball charging ahead of them at the Battle of the Cowshed, how he had rallied and encouraged them at every turn, and how he had not paused for an instant, even when the pellets from Jones's gun had wounded his back. At first, it was a little difficult to see how this fitted in with his being on Jones's side. Even Boxer, who seldom asked questions, was puzzled. He lay down, tucked his forehooves beneath him, shut his eyes, and with a hard effort, managed to formulate his thoughts. I do not believe that. Snowball fought bravely at the Battle of the Cowshed. I saw him myself. Did we not give him Animal Hero First Class immediately afterwards? That was our mistake, comrade. For we know now it is all written down in the secret document. Oh, this is fucking Squealer. Mistake, comrade. For all we know, it is written down in the secret documents that we have found. For we know now. Now we know that it's in the secret documents. Yeah, okay. That we have found that in reality, he was trying to lure us to our doom. But he was wounded. We all saw him running with blood. That was part of the arrangement. Jones's shot only grazed him. I could show you this in his own writing if you were able to read it. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Convenient that you found documents when everybody on the farm is mad dumb except for y'all and like, I think some dogs and some sheep or something. The plot was for Snowball at the critical moment to give the signal for flight and then leave the field to the enemy, and he very nearly succeeded. I will even say, comrades, he would have succeeded if it would not have been for our heroic leader, Comrade Napoleon. Do you not remember now, just at the moment when Jones and his men had got inside the yard, Snowball suddenly turned and fled, and how many animals followed him? Do you not remember too that it was just at that moment when panic was spreading and all seemed lost, that Comrade Napoleon sprang forward with a cry of "Death to humanity!" and sank his teeth in Jones's leg? Surely you remember that, comrades? Exclaimed Squealer, frisking from side to side. Now, when Squealer described the scene so graphically, it seemed to the animals that they did remember it. At any rate, they remembered that the critical moment of the Battle of Snowball, they remember, Ribbity, that's a good Ribbity. Let me hit on little Ribbity, baby. Sorry, I got in my feelings a little bit. At any rate, they remembered that at the critical moment of the battle, Snowball had turned to flee, but Boxer was still a little uneasy. I do not believe that Snowball was a traitor at the beginning. What he has done since is different, but I believe that the Battle of the Cowshed, he was a good comrade. Our leader, Comrade Napoleon, announced, very slowly and firmly, our leader, Comrade Napoleon, has stated categorically, comrade, that Snowball was Jones's agent from the very beginning. Yes, and from long before the rebellion was ever thought of. That is different. If Comrade Napoleon says it, it must be right. That is the spirit. That is the true spirit, comrade, cried Squealer, but it was noticed that he cast a very ugly look at Boxer with his little twinkling eyes. He turned to go, and then paused and added impressively, I warn every animal on this farm to keep his eyes open very wide, for we have reason to think that some of Snowball's secret agents are lurking amongst us at this very moment. 4 days later, in the late afternoon, Napoleon ordered all the animals to assemble in the yard. When they were all gathered together, Napoleon emerged from the farmhouse wearing both his medals, for he had recently awarded himself Animal Hero First Class and Animal Hero Second Class. And with his 9 dogs frisking around him and uttering growls that sent shivers down all the animals' spines, they all cowered slightly in their places, seeming to know in advance that some terrible thing was about to happen. Napoleon stood sternly, surveying his audience. Then he uttered a high-pitched whimper. Immediately, the dogs bounded forward, seized 4 of the pigs by the ear, and dragged them, squealing with pain and terror, to Napoleon's feet. The pigs' ears were bleeding, the dogs had tasted blood, and for a few moments they appeared to go quite mad. I'm not hitting my T's today. I did pop 2 edibles like an hour and a half ago though, so. Ooh. And they had appeared to go quite mad. To the amazement of everybody, 3 of them flung themselves upon Boxer. Boxer saw them coming and put out his great hoof, caught a dog in midair and pinned him to the ground. The dog shrieked for mercy, and the other 2 fled with their tails between their legs. Boxer looked at Napoleon to know whether he should crush the dog to death or to let it go. Damn. Do we really think Boxer is that far gone that he doesn't realize Napoleon did this? You know what I'm saying? Oh, I wonder, maybe he's not looking for... Yeah, okay, so yeah, the next sentence. Napoleon appeared to change countenance. Napoleon appeared to change countenance and sharply ordered Boxer to let the dog go, whereat Boxer lifted his hoof and let the dog slink away, bruised and howling. So, is Boxer unaware that Napoleon is the one that's doing this? Uttered a high-pitched whimper and the dogs attacked. That's crazy. Presently, the tumult died down. Damn, is that like the fucking root word of tumultuous? Interesting. I never knew that. Presently, the tumult died down. The 4 pigs waited, trembling with guilt, written on every line of their countenances. Napoleon now called upon them to confess their crimes. They were the same 4 pigs as had protested when Napoleon abolished the Sunday meetings. Without any further prompting, they confessed that they had been secretly in touch with Snowball ever since his expulsion, that they had collaborated with him in destroying the windmill, and that they had entered into an agreement with him at to hand over Animal Farm to Mr. Frederick. They added that Snowball had privately admitted to them that he had been Jones's secret agent for years past. When they had finished their confession, the dogs promptly tore their throats out, and in a terrible voice, Napoleon demanded whether any other animal had anything to confess. The three hens who had been ringleaders in the attempted rebellion over the eggs now came forward and stated that Snowball had appeared to them in a dream and incited them to disobey Napoleon's orders. They too were slaughtered. Then a goose came forward and confessed to having secreted 6 ears of corn during last year's harvest and eaten them in the night. And then a sheep confessed to having urinated in the drinking pool, urged to do so by Snowball, she said. And 2 other sheep confessed to having murdered an old ram, an especially devoted follower of Napoleon, by chasing him round and round a bonfire when he was suffering from a cough. They were all slain on the spot. And so, the tale of confessions and executions went on until there was a pile of corpses lying before Napoleon's feet, and the air was heavy with the smell of blood, which had been unknown there since the expulsion of Jones. When it was all over, the remaining animals, except for the pigs and dogs, crept away in a body. What does that mean? Crept away in a body? They were shaken and miserable. They did not know which was more shocking, the treachery of the animals who had leagued themselves with Snowball, or the cruel retribution they had just witnessed. In the old days, there had often been scenes of bloodshed equally terrible, but it seemed to all of them that it was far worse now that it was happening amongst themselves. Since Jones had left the farm, until today, no animal had killed another animal. Not even a rat had been killed. They had made their way onto the little knoll, which was where the half-finished windmill stood, and with one accord, they all lay down as though huddling together for warmth. Clover, Muriel, Benjamin, the cows, the sheep, and a whole flock of geese and hens. Everyone is indeed except the cat, who had suddenly disappeared just before Napoleon ordered the animals to assemble. For some time, nobody spoke. Only Boxer remained on his feet. He fidgeted to and fro, swishing his long black tail against his sides and occasionally uttering a little whinny of surprise. Finally, he said, "I do not understand it. I would not have believed that such things could happen on our farm. It must be due to some fault in ourselves. The solution, as I see it, is to work harder. From now onwards, I shall get up a full hour earlier in the mornings." And he moved off at his lumbering trot and made for the quarry. Having got there, he collected 2 successive loads of stone and dragged them down to the windmill before retiring for the night. The animals huddled about Clover, not speaking. The knoll where they were lying gave them a wide prospect across the countryside. Most of Animal Farm was within their view. The long pasture stretching down to the main road, the hayfield, the spinney, the drinking pool, the plowed fields. The plowed fields where the young wheat was thick and green, and the red roofs of the farm buildings with the smoke curling from the chimneys. It was a clear spring evening. The grass and bursting hedges were gilded by level rays of the sun. Never had the farm, and with a kind of surprise they remembered that it was their own farm, every inch of it their own property. Never had the farm appeared to the animals such a desirable a place. As Clover looked down the hillside, her eyes filled with tears. As if she could have spoken her thoughts, it would have been to say that this was not what they had aimed at when they set themselves years ago. When they had set themselves years ago to work for the overthrow of the human race. If she could not have... Fuck me, why is this sentence hard? If she could have spoken her thoughts, it would have been to say that this was not what they had aimed at when they had set themselves years ago to work for the overthrow of the human race. These scenes of terror and slaughter were not what they had looked forward to on that night when Old Major first stirred them into the rebellion. If she herself had any picture of the future, it had been of a society of animals set free from hunger and the whip, all equal, each working according to his capacity, the strong protecting the weak, as she had protected the lost brood of ducklings with her foreleg on the night of Major's speech. Instead, she did not know why, they had come to a time where no one dared speak his mind, when fierce growling dogs roamed everywhere, and when you had to watch your comrades get torn to pieces after confessing to shocking crimes. There was no thought of rebellion or disobedience in her mind. She knew that even as things were, they were far better off than they had been in the days of Jones. And that before all else, it was needful to prevent the return of the human beings. Whatever happened, she would remain faithful, work hard, carry out the orders that were given to her, and accept the leadership of Napoleon, but still, it was not for this that she and all the other animals had hoped and toiled. It was not for this that they had built the windmill and faced the bullets of Jones's gun. Such were her thoughts, though she lacked the words to express them. At last, feeling this to be in some way a substitute for the words she was unable to find, she began to sing Beasts of England. The other animals sitting round her took it up, and they sang it 3 times over, very tunefully but slowly and mournfully in a way that they'd never sung it before. They had just finished singing it for the 3rd time when Squealer, attended by 2 dogs, approached them with the air of having something important to say. He announced that, by a special decree of Comrade Napoleon, Beasts of England has been abolished. From now onwards, it was forbidden to sing it. And the animals were taken aback. "Why?" cried Muriel. It is no longer needed, comrade," said Squealer stiffly. "Beasts of England was the song of the rebellion, but the rebellion is now completed. The execution of the traitors this afternoon was the final act. The enemy, both external and internal, has been defeated. In Beasts of England, we expressed our longing for a better society in days to come, but that society has now been established. Clearly, this song has no longer any purpose." Frightened though they were, some of the animals might possibly have protested, but at this moment the sheep set up their usual bleating of 4 legs good, 2 legs bad, which went on for several minutes and put an end to the discussion. So Beasts of England was heard no more. In its place, Minimus, the poet, had composed another song, which began, Animal farm, and never through me shalt thou come to harm. Rushes sucks. And this song was sung every Sunday after the hoisting of the flag, but somehow neither the words nor the tune ever seemed to the animals to come up to Beasts of England. Damn, man. So now you got the fucking bourgeois class out here trying to take slave songs from the workers, bro. Fucked up. How you gonna do that? How you gonna do that to these folks? That's messed up. Napoleon, it's fuck. All my homies hate Napoleon, bro. Short ass little pig ass bitch. But anyway, man, that was a hell of an episode. Like I said, the pacing of this book is crazy. We only got about 30 pages left, so next week might be like another hour and a half long episode if we can try to squeeze in all 30 something pages. like 38 looks like. So, but yeah, that was a lot of fun, man. I can't trust anything Napoleon does. I think all this shit's some false flag stuff. Boxer is the man for fucking up that dog, and I hope we get to see, you know, see that used as a sort of a vote of confidence that you guys can and should be willing and able and capable of overthrowing our government when the day comes. So don't be scared of that. It's probably coming pretty soon. I know everybody's emotions are really high right now, so I wouldn't be surprised if we saw it within the next 5 or 10 years. Some real crazy stuff happening in American politics. So shout out to my South African listener. I know it's probably only one of you, even though it said 2% of listeners. I don't know, whatever. Shout out everybody for listening. I really appreciate you. Y'all beautiful to me, even if you feel ugly on the inside. I'm gonna try to remember that everybody's beautiful and worthwhile of a little bit of love and a little bit of light. So remember that, and I'll see y'all next week, boy. Check your shelf, baby, baby. Bow, bow.